Today we are going to talk to Andrea Boll, a performer, choreographer, artistic director from Switzerland, Zurich. Hello, Andrea. Welcome to our Artist
Hi.
Talk. So, like I explained before, maybe first you can start talking your story a bit, your journey, what inspires you, where you are now, and what is happening creatively, artistically, and also things around you in the art scene in Zurich, Switzerland.
Yes. Okay. So I'm from Switzerland originally. I left here when I was 18 and a half to go study dance in the Netherlands. So I did the co-dance education. At that time it wasn't called co-dance, but the dance education in Rotterdam. And then I stayed in the Netherlands. I have been working at quite a young age together with other choreographers, creating this collaboration of choreographers and dancers called Hans Hof Ensemble, which I have been doing from 26 till 35, about this, 38, I would say, until my son was born in 2009. And yes, then I moved to Switzerland to become the director of Tanzhaus. I did this for 3 years. And then I started to do my own work here in Switzerland, which I basically had to build up from scratch again, because I had no audience here, I had no structure to work with. So I would say it took me about 5 years also to, after stopping for a while, producing and creating, to figure out what I wanted to actually still do and how. So I started to work site-specific a lot, and the motivation for that was because I realized that this question was really burning for me. What is the audience for dance, for contemporary dance? How do we interact? How would I like actually to interact? So basically I was missing something, and ever since, I call it the golden 90s in the Netherlands, where there was a lot of support, and personally I had a very good situation how I could work, and everything seemed possible always. Of course, artist's life is always struggling sometimes, but it was very, very different from now, which of course at the time we probably didn't realize how luxury we had it. So there was a lot of questions coming up. Also, what I started to have more and more problems is this kind of depending on subventions, depending on a few people deciding if you can make your next work or not. I didn't, and that was something developed for a long time already in the Netherlands. Also, it more and more started to disturb me, because also the dance world is so small, so you always kind of meet the same people, and I just didn't like this idea anymore of depending on it. Also in the Netherlands, suddenly it was told to everyone we had to become cultural entrepreneurs, and we were all like, what is that? So I realized also that we were raised depending on that system. And it was also very normal to us that it was like that, and it was functioning. And now I would say, if I say very black and white, it doesn't work anymore. And on one side, and on the other side, there are also a lot of new possibilities, which sometimes can be really confusing. So what I observe also with younger makers, younger dancers, that it's so much that they get a bit lost in it. It's very different to very difficult, I think, to find perspectives. And of course, that's something which is lacking already a long time in the dance world. That when you're young, I would say, it sounds stupid, but it's kind of easy to start, if you have the energy, if you have the will to go, you will find something. But what's after 10 years, what's after 15 years, what's after 20 years? I always admired, also when I was young, I admired experienced people, especially also to learn dance, to study, to train. I was always fascinated by people who had a lot of experience and could share that with us. So and then now I'm myself became 50. So I look back and I say, well, it was a very good decision, also because I think I wanted to, I always thought, okay, if someone at 45 or at 50 can move and can move fascinating, I want to learn this, because this is knowledge, it's experience. I want to know how this person got there. It was always fascinating me. And I think that was also leading me to move sane, to move adaptive, to move with the possibilities you have, which is of course starting with your own body and the connection to it, but also the environment, the flexibility to adapt, which I think is one of the best capacities of Homo sapiens to adapt, to change. Yes, on the other side, we also have a domestic side. And of course, when you have children, this side is becoming more important also in your life. So I spent a good 25 years with my backpack and suitcase, going a lot around, traveling a lot. That was also something I didn't fancy so much anymore. I love to travel, but I also started to do site-specific work because I wanted to have more connection to the direct surrounding. No matter where I am, I want to have this exchange and this braveness also. In the beginning, it asks quite a lot of courage from me, because I'm also someone, I like to be in the studio, close the door and work and find out. But it's safe. So I wanted to throw myself in front of the lions to interact and to get this response from the streets, from nature, from... So that was my journey the past 5 years. I kept doing also work for the stage, because I think this experience, I closed there's some machinery outside.
Yeah.
I like this interaction. So when you make something outside, so I started to do this site-specific work in 2015 with a trilogy called Downhill, Downriver, Downtown. So there were really 3 very different surroundings. The city, in the middle of the city, downtown, downhill, on a hill, outside in the nature, with lots of space, lots of perspectives, which was something I always missed on stage, that I always wanted to go through the back wall. And then downriver, in the water, at the water, and then while I did this, the form was like tours, so we're walking and the audience is walking with us. I did that the past 5 summers, and then I made 2 movies out of that, Downhill and now recently Downriver. So it led me also to, I made some movies with my former company, but it led me back to movies also because of this changing surroundings, and I was always jealous on movies that you can do that in a split of a second. You can change from one location to another. So that way of telling a story with dance, that was always fascinating for me. So I came back also to do this movie work, and then I realized there is nothing here in Switzerland to present also. So I started to do this dance movie festival, Dance on Screen, which is now the second time this year. Yeah, that's a bit roughly the story and the motivation.
No, it's great. I mean, there are a lot of things came to my mind that I want to ask you just from your story. Maybe I can try to go to this sentence that I told you, and then maybe I can come back to these points that I want to ask again. So, like I said, we have this one line which is art keeps us going. So if I can elaborate, is that, you know, when you personally are going through a situation, right? Like, could be anything, any difficulties. It could be, you know, the fact that creatively you're blocked, or like you said, like, you know, the systems are changing. Now, to kind of bring back this one thing that you triggered from what you said before, is that a few people decides who gets the money. And so when you're going through like different kind of difficult situation, how does your art or what you do keep you going? What inspires you in your creation, or how do you use it? Do you use it? You see what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely. I always I would say I never had an idea which I really wanted to create, which I didn't manage to do it sooner or later. So for me, it's always, I taught myself also through the years, and of course I had people to support me in that, was also that artistically, I always try to make my mind free from all these circumstances. So when I start writing a dossier about a piece, for me it is a necessity if you want to make it. But for me, it also became a process to really figure out what I want to make. And for that, I kind of developed a tool for myself, which I call BOLLWERK, is my company, BOLLWERK Lab. I can do there whatever I want. And sometimes it's 1 week, sometimes a BOLLWERK Lab can be 2 years here and there, but it is not starting from an intellectual point of view, but it's starting on practice. So I just practice, and I practice on that kind of need of expressing something or trying out something. Sometimes it's a person that I want to work with, a person that fascinates me and inspires me. Sometimes it's a topic, but sometimes it's also just the drive to move and to find material, which is what I realized through the years. You're aging and the material is adapting. Also the material you want to work is changing, you know, and many things. I'm a floor work freak, so many things stay with me for many years, and then suddenly I realized they start to change, you know, they start to have a different, looking for a different coordination, or wanting to combine things differently, or I want to learn something I saw. At the moment I'm busy with Kung Fu a lot, so I want to adapt some principles of martial art. That's the theme which I always also did Aikido. I do yoga for many years, so I also did research how can I use yoga? How can I make it moving away from the mat? And how do I integrate? So it can be these kind of things which are very practical, which at the moment it's training in the nature, training in the forest, training at the water, combining it with swimming into some. So these kind of topics, which I know they influence my work sometimes very directly, sometimes only 2 years after. So this is one way of which keeps me always going, including also reading and learning other techniques and methods, and the other way is the intellectual, which is the writing became a tool for me, which I really like, which I always have a lot of resistance from it in the beginning, so I need to put myself in certain moods also. So I think what I decided when I restarted to make work is that I don't want to, that I want this artistic process that keeps me going, that there keeps being a need to express things, that I have to make this independent of all the other timings, of deadlines, of possibilities there, possibilities here, not possibilities, all this. So I try to follow in that sense a lot my own rhythm more and more, in terms of that I can step into that whole deadline and this and that, trying to make something happen, leave this and step into, let's say, my own timing, artistic timing, and hopefully they meet at one point. This keeps being a thing. You have to search for it, you have to go for it, and sometimes I also feel, okay, it's very urgent, you know, I have to go for this now, and sometimes I feel there is time, I don't need to push things, this can cook in a corner somewhere. So this is what I'm trying to do. Of course, it's not always working ideally, and you get stressed anyway. Because of one or the other, but I try to respect the two and make them meet at one point. This is a bit how I came to work.
Beautiful. So there is something that you said before, which kind of like with this festival that we're doing, Sanskar Virtual Dance Festival, is that it's a lot to one of the main pillar is that to create a platform where artists can express what they want to express without any control by other systems. Like it's nobody tells you that this piece is chosen because it fits into some kind of political agenda or a systematic agenda. So it's the purpose is to kind of clear all that and just make it into artist and showing it. That's it. So you spoke about this idea that one is the who gets the money, because sometimes it's also very unpredictable, because for example, you've been spending in the scene since so many years, but somehow the fact that we rely on the system, you're always in the same zone, uncertain zone, right? So there's no guarantee just because you are a senior artist. Let's say, for a joke, if you have invested in a company or a business for 20, 30 years, if it's going successful, you will arrive to a place where you can relax more. But whereas with what you're doing and many people in the same area, because of your life and what gets supported and what is not, so unpredictable, and it's always a big question mark. So my question is that how much of it that when you're creating a work is the fact that you have to fit into some context, hence you have to create a work that way, or how much of it actually is you're very free to do whatever you want? You understand the question?
Yeah. I think that stays a struggle always. Doesn't matter. I think, even though if you look at art, how it happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there were many system. Artists were also depending on kings, giving them the money, and then telling them, actually, now you have to produce something for me. And they were struggling and free themselves from it. And so this, I think, it's always there, and it's also a task, I think, for us, the artists, to struggle with it, to be part of a system, and then expose the system and fight for what you think is not going right, or fight for simply your personal freedom in it. I think this is always, it always has to been there, and it's a tool also for artists. What I realized by myself is that a lot of motivation when I was young was anger. Behind many things I was doing, there was anger, and there was this anger energy also to express, which is great. It's fantastic. It's a lot of energy. But after my son was born, I realized that this cannot be my motivation anymore. I'm not looking for this, and I don't want it anymore. I don't want it to be. I don't want to do a revolution all the time. I think I was quite extreme in that. That would be a whole other thing to research on that. But that was part of it. Was also that the coffee machine. That I grew up in a very small place. My parents went from Zurich to another part of Switzerland in the countryside. It was very small, a village, and I always felt it too small, so I wanted to leave at a very young age. So I left the country at 18 and a half. Also going through that process of being in a foreign country, and having to redefine everything for yourself with the people around you. So I think that was just natural. That was a big push, that anger, and to express it also, and to sweat, and to do that, and. Yeah, now I think I more look for empathy as a basic. I also realized that sometimes it's very difficult to I made once a piece called Happiness, and after 2.5 months we had like 15 minutes, not more. We were not capable of collecting material about happiness.
That's interesting.
So I was like, okay, we have 2 weeks left till the premiere. What to do? Now we make the opposite. We have to show unhappy to show happiness. So, and it went super fast. So in 2 weeks we had a lot of material.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be kind of boring, it's like, okay, if you don't want to express conflict or what to express at all. So
beautiful. Yeah.
This is a big question, and I realized for me it's really about if I work with people, what kind of exchange are we looking for, and that becomes the pieces as well. Which is the layer behind the topic and the theme. So I really need to create a strong bond with the people I work with. Which I think it's a big difference if I look, and I always ask myself, is this something because I'm becoming older and look back with a kind of nostalgic really happening? I think it's both. I guess in the 80s, 90s, we had much more physical contact, in the sense of we spent much more time in general with the same people in the same space or in the same environment. which made that very cute. What you did. You spent 3 months or even longer with really intensively working with the people face to face or side to side, which is something I observe is happening less and less. And of course now Corona for me only made that more visible, it's like, okay, something anyway happening, and now we have to take this physical distance, and we cannot shake hands anymore, we can't kiss our friends. Where is that going? So that this is in many sense this situation made this even more clear. And then I think it's, for me, the decision is always I want to look for that again, but also not with everybody anymore and under whatever circumstances anymore, So I think I spend much more time nowadays to create certain circumstances where this can actually take place. And I'm not so interested anymore in this super fast producing. And I could kick on it for a while, to be fast and make a lot. I can also make it as a game, okay, in 20 minutes this has to be done. So I like this as well, but I think on a long term, many things miss this chewing, So it becomes a little bit, doesn't matter who does it, everybody's replaceable. For me, if I watch things, I sometimes this is what I'm missing. I miss the chewing, the time people spend together, the depth. And so every time I feel so stressed, this is not working, that's okay, but come back to that wish, and see with who and why and in what circumstances you can create. And get to that, because this is the only thing that interests me in the end of the day.
But it makes sense. It's also beautiful to see somehow that in your journey that there's a sense of adaptability, that you always adapt, and in the different situation that you change the creation process, the fact that we're fighting to a happy peace, but then change it, adapt immediately to something else. I think it's also good exercise, especially now in the current situation, to do it, because we all facing crisis for the pandemic, or otherwise also people in the world are facing different kind of crisis. Some places does not have money. Some places never get an opportunity to show what you want to show. Some spaces people don't even understand what you're trying to do. So people are going through different kind of situation. But I think it's one pill is to really adapt and try to see what you can do with the situation. It's beautiful, which actually brings me to the next kind of line, which is that now you keep us going. So the context is that, like what I said before, that, for example, in India, there are different kind of situation that, let's say, someone who wants to do an artistic performing art, contemporary performing art, because you are oversaturated information from your past, like really ancient information, traditional forms, and then the popular forms, which is entertainment, Bollywood, and also the TV, for example, portrays American version of contemporary dance. And when I say it's more like a modern, so do you think you can dance kind of material. So people are busy with more that kind of idea, rather than really like going and understanding what is contemporary movement art could be, and what does it mean, and how an artist expresses. And also, of course, there is no money there. Like, there's financially zero support for art. And it's not just India, it's many parts of the world people are going through this kind of crisis. And for example, if somebody wants to show a work from, let's say, Africa, for them to come to Europe to present what they have done, it's like winning a lottery, literally. You might have a great talent, but it has to have so many different steps, which is bureaucratic steps, which is you need to have a contact of a programmer who has to come and watch you, and then you need to get invited to a festival, and then you need to have your money to be able to get your company there. So there are so many layers of issues, and also sometimes, for example, if you look at contemporary movement art history, some region of the world, especially Europe and maybe North America, they're somehow a little ahead of time because they've been busy with it since several decades now. So the creative aspect of it is also kind of moved forward. And for example, some countries, they are kind of beginning to work on these ideas, and they're trying to catch up. They're behind, you know. And so hence the quality also changes a lot. Even the availability of scenography or costumes and lighting is nothing, zero. So we are kind of being busy with this kind of topic a lot, like how we can create formats and try to encourage people to make it more easier accessibility to show your work, right? So when when you see someone who is going through a difficulty, it could be from your world, or if when you hear these kind of stories, what is that you would like to do or would tell them to do from your side so they can continue the process?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, but I can only say it's always worth to fall back on yourself, you know, and work from there, even if it's for a while only practicing, you know. What I realize also is that after a while, sometimes you can lose this daily practice because you have so many other things to do, you know. And after a while, I realize I miss the base, you know. So I go back to making myself a kind of structure that I do the daily practice, you know. And so my work is developing in there, even though I have no idea where it goes or if it goes anywhere, you know. But I think this is something very important, that we don't forget this. And it's also it's home, you know. You do it, if you do it for 1 hour or 2 hours or the whole day, it doesn't matter, but it's home. It's where you keep in dance. I think sometimes I see that people don't have the craftsmanship anymore, you know. So that, okay, if it's only the stage and the lighting and the costume and the possibility, but there is no craftsmanship behind, it's like if you would be a farmer and you would just not knowing how to do your field or how to feed your cows, and you at one point you're pretending you're a farmer, but you're not, you know. So I think this is something I always say, people go back to practice, you know. This is your craftsmanship, this is your tools, this is your development as a personality, in art, and art with your personality. So this is I think this is a great power, you know, if you can fall back on that, even though you're in a shitty moment and in a shitty surrounding. So, and the other is contact, you know, stay in contact with the people who inspire you, even if it's now like this with the Zoom, you know. Yeah. Which is also, I think, a very valid question now with this lockdown, is how much of this traveling do we really need?
Yeah.
It's also easy to keep you busy. Travel there, travel here, travel there. Your life is always something is happening, but how much of it is really necessary? It's confronting to become so local, you know, especially if you're in a country where you constantly live in this feeling, if I want to do this, I have to go somewhere else. But yeah, on the other hand, I think you can ask this, if you look to Europe in very luxury situations, it's all becoming shaky now. Is it? It's not shaky because of there is no money anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
It's shaky because it's not up to date anymore, those systems, you know. And it's something normal in humanity. Many societies, they ended at one point. Big societies that came to create fantastic buildings, places, they also ended. So I think sometimes I think that, okay, maybe this is the end time of this kind of world we are trying to maintain. And other things have to come. So yeah, these are the two things: the practice, the daily practice, and the contact with the people inspiring you. And sometimes we think there have to be many people, but if I look back in my life, there were always very few people, actually.
Yeah.
Very few people who inspire you a lot. And you stay with these 10, 15, 20 years, you make it or find your own way to deal with it. Of course, I think if you're younger, you need more people.
Yeah.
You know, we have this, I also see that with my son. There is this saying, it needs a village to raise a child.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So when you're young, you need more people. You need to meet people. You need to make, and I think it's worth to invest in that. So I am in contact with two guys in Uganda. They join my yoga class on Zoom every week.
Yeah, beautiful.
Every week, twice. So I know one of them. I know Robert from when I was teaching in École de Sable in Senegal. So they're like 5 people I regularly meet on social media, exchange how are you, a couple of words. And now somehow I came in contact with Robert again. He used to live in Berlin, started to do his work there. Then with the lockdown, he had to go back to his country. Ever since, he's kind of isolated there, doing his thing, you know. And now we have this contact through yoga every week. So yeah, and I know at one point I want to work with him because his story fascinates me. Also, I want to tell this story. I think it's worth to share it with the world. Right now, I have no idea yet. You know, it's all vague. But I just told him that. I think I keep remembering the story you told me 2 years ago in École de Sable. At one evening, we were sitting outside with close to the internet, everybody with the mobile phones. And he told me his life story, how he grew up. And it kind of hit me. And I wrote some keywords down. And I kept these notes, and it keeps popping up. It keeps popping up, and I go like, maybe it should be a movie. Maybe it has to be a piece. It has to be a solo for Robert. Maybe it has to be with 10 people. I don't know, you know. But I know that this story, it triggered something, and I want to tell it, you know. And I want to work with him on that, and I have no idea yet. So I think that's very important to stay in contact or to find also new people, which social media is a fantastic way. It's also a jungle, but it is a way to also discover, meet new people. That's something I feel strongly also, that I don't want to, in the dance world, I think in Europe, you're in one country, the world is always small, you know, the scene is always small. And when I came to Switzerland, I realized that this was very, very difficult and costs me a lot of energy to enter those circles. And also part of me doesn't want to, you know, part of me doesn't want to constantly connect, because I realized that a part of it's not for my life anymore. You know what I mean? I don't need to be in contact with these people all the time to feel that I'm a part of the dance world of Switzerland or a part of the dance world of Zurich. Because also a part of it I don't want anymore in my life, because I know this is dangerous for me. I get into places I don't want to. I don't think it's creative. I don't think it's constructive. So I come back to this theme of empathy, you know. So let's say when I was younger, I'm someone who if I meet people, I want to have contact, you know. But now I came also to the point that sometimes I say, okay, with this person, it just doesn't make any sense, you know. We don't have the good vibes together, so why investing our time, you know? Sometimes I think, and this is maybe also someone in the Netherlands, old experienced choreographer in the Netherlands, she told me once, you know, you never have a right to get money to do your work. Which that sticked in my mind a lot. I thought, yeah, it's true. I don't have a right. It doesn't matter what I did, how much I did, how good I am. I don't have a right. I can ask for it, you know, and I can try to be smart and try to be empathetic and try to be authentic also in what you're looking for, why you ask money there, why you ask money here. And I realized that often it's an act of, I say this in English, desperation, you know. You go like, oh, okay, I need to do, you know, it can be as true and authentic as you want it to, but when you come to this point where you have to look, you're very ready, very easily ready to compromise. Your work, to compromise yourself, because you start to read all these guidelines and you try to fit it in there, and then it doesn't really fit. And then you start to bend. I even had processes. I start to rewrite my things, and after I said, yeah, but now it's not anymore what I wanted to do. It is maybe fitting these guidelines, it's maybe fitting these guidelines, but it's not authentic anymore, you know. So why is that? And I think, you can do two things. You can go and run along with possibilities, you know. And I think that's also maybe the difference of being a dancer, where you always, you work for something, you work for a project. You work with, in the best case, you work with the choreographer, but sometimes you also work for the choreographer. Where you're, let's say, adapting or finding out what is needed or asked is a part of the interpretation, which is very different than making things. Nowadays, I think young dancers, they mix this from the beginning, what it is to make and to interpret, and they mix it a lot, which I think is very good. But I think that's a question you should ask from time to time. Am I the driver, you know, behind this? Do I initiate it because I have the necessity to do it? Or do I sit beside the driver or in the back, you know, in the car? Which is all fine, but it's good to know. It's good to know what's your place in something, because in that sense, I'm very much maker, because I tend then to, even though I'm not driving, I tend to put all this energy, you know, and then this energy might not be needed, and it might not be wanted, and you get in conflicts.
Yeah.
So to figure out for yourself, okay, what can I do in these situations? Do I want to be a driver in this situation? Which might also mean to fight against the system or to take some danger to you while doing that, you know, depending what the surrounding is, or some aggression coming towards you. It is always the case when you want to change something, you want to make, so there are also always people who want to stop you. You know, there is only one reason to do it, is because you want to do it, you know. I cannot say, because I'm not from Africa, I'm not from India, I'm not from these places where you have so little possibilities, you know. But what I also see, if people set through, they have a great power, you know, they have a great necessity to actually do it. So maybe also sometimes the step is first to not be in the driver's seat, you know, and to find a good car. Even if the car is only driving around your village, I don't know.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes total sense what you're saying. Yeah. No, because also there's my next question would have been like the idea of virtual world. What do you think about it? But I think all along you've been also saying to use these tools, and we're also coming to an era where things are shifting. Our reality is also changing a lot. And also you also mentioned about, like, you know, so reflecting on how much we have to travel to go. And so which would have been my next question, is that, like, because there is this dilemma, especially in performing art, there is this like, oh, I don't want to do things online. I don't want to use the tool of virtuality because I don't believe in it. And yes, I understand when you have the access to that real space, when you have the access and even economical support, that you can use a real space to do what the amazing work, and also you will have people to come and watch you, then I understand it's much easier. But you know, there's some people does not have that capacity, and whereas virtual world becomes a very easier tool, because now phone is everywhere in the world and internet is everywhere in the world, even if it's bad, but you can somehow manage to put your work out there. So my next question would have been along the line for you, like, what do you think about these two different realities, and the shift that we have towards the virtual world? And but if you want to add something on it more, would be great, although you've been mentioning many things along the way.
Yeah, I think what I just realized by myself is that I'm not watching things online. I'm not watching it. Or only if I have if I know the person, if I have an interest already. But I think I would not log into an online festival just for the sake of watching the whole festival. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is because I already tried to reduce the online time just to keep doing my work. And now around the dance film festival, there is so much
Computer.
on this screen. I have a son who I have to really be tough in saying, okay, time is over, otherwise they would spend the whole day on it. So there is this very conscious, how much time a day do I spend on it, and shifting between periods where this is your daily work, you know, and the practice I have been talking about. You really have to do an effort to still be able to do it beside everything else. And there is a time where you create, and then this really has, for me, to go as much as possible in the background. But I think the process of filming, you know, which in the end of the day, this is also art. Filming your work, thinking about how this is great. This is creative work. This is perspective. It's observing. It's looking. It's movement in space and how to get it on the screen. This I think is great because you're practicing. And I had some discussions with people who really refused. They didn't want to come to the online class. I invited someone for sport. They just really said, okay, no, which I understand and respect it, but I think it's not necessary to be so extreme in it because it's a part of our life. And it's a part of everybody's life nowadays, almost everybody's life. And more and more, and we have to find, I always look at the children and I say, okay, if I forbid this is stupid, It's like when I was young, it was the television, we were not allowed to watch how much we wanted. So we watched when our parents were gone. Of course, we went to put on the television. And now are all these gadgets and they're available constantly. And I think is finding a balance, but to refuse it completely, I find it a bit ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I try to use it in the sense of making contact to people or stay in contact, which I always think it's great. I also get pleasure from it, energy, inspiration, and to not lose the basics,
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, now, of course, I feel this. I feel that I like the contact with other people after this lockdown here. Started to open up again, but still not completely. So I also ask this, okay, where is it going? Do we still spend 2 years like that, not shaking hands? I don't know. It's frightening also. So I think this is a question to everyone, is how to be integrated in a, and I see, of course, my generation and older, they struggle much more with it than younger people because they grew up. But the most extreme, to say, no, I don't do it at all, those are mostly the younger people.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
So or at least that's what I observed. It's like quite young people in the early 20s who say, no, not at all.